All right.
Hey.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Gosh, it's been a minute since I've gone live on social media. I almost forget how to do this, but here we are. Thank you all for tuning in. We have Councilmember Lauren Kuby with us to talk about a few topics. Lauren, how are you?
Very good. I'm sharing with my audience.
Yeah, good. Maybe turn your speaker down. Okay, I think maybe it was on my end. I think it's better now. Good. Yeah, spread the word. If you're tuning in, share the video if you'd like to. Help us get our message out. We're going to cover a few topics tonight and also just kind of answer any questions you might have. And then we're going to take this conversation over to Instagram and chat with folks there. So it's going to be a nice evening of community engagement and conversation. So again, hi everybody. I am Councilmember Adam Shimoni, and thank you all for tuning in. Councilmember Kuby, why don't you start off by introducing yourself and talking a little bit about Tempe right now?
Sure, I'm Councilmember Lauren Kuby, and Adam is my spirit animal on the Flagstaff Council. We share a lot of common values and interests, from climate change to equity to human services, and we've often had these talks, and they're so much fun. I appreciate learning from you, Adam. You have such a great way of communicating with your residents. So yeah, I'm council member in my second term. Been on the council for 6 years. I like to say sworn in on January 15th, 2015, and sworn at on January 16th, 2015. And it's been a wild ride. I had never run for office before. I was, like you, an activist, and came onto council as somebody who thought of myself as an activist. Even so, when people refer to me as a politician, I have to kind of shake and say, like, what? I'm that? Really? No, I'm an activist. But unlike you, I ran for office at age 56, right? So I wasn't necessarily a young person, a person of a certain age. And so I had a lot of wisdom to bring, but also, a lot of preconceived notions as well. So it's been really, fun being on the council. It's an incredibly exciting time, I think, in our history, because we see how cities lead, and cities, especially in Arizona, we create the change we want to see, and we incubate a lot of really good ideas and innovations. So I want to, jumpstart it with saying thank you for having me on your program here.
Oh, of course. Thank you. It is fun doing these videos with you and sharing insights and just hearing about what other communities are doing across the state. I think that's so important. And like you said, that change is led by cities. And so it's true. We are on the front lines. It's really exciting as council people and as activists. This is how you move the needle. So let's jump into climate. I'm still hearing some feedback. I don't know if that's on my end, maybe.
Yeah, I think when I was sharing my Facebook Live thing or yours, I was some back talk, but I think that's done now.
Okay. I hope so. We'll see. But no worries. Let's start with climate. So in Flagstaff, we have declared a climate emergency, and we're on a path to net neutrality by 2030. Carbon neutrality, and it's extremely ambitious, right? You have, with the building energy being one of the bigger categories that we need to tackle, with transportation being another major category that we need to tackle, and then the third one being waste management. What is Tempe doing on the topic of climate? I know that's a topic that's extremely important to you. There's so much that we are doing that I'll talk about in a minute, but why don't you let our viewers know what is Tempe doing?
Sure. So Tempe's on its second climate action plan. We're researching and reaching out to the public about that now. In November, we'll hopefully adopt our climate action plan 2.0. And we were the first in the East Valley. You were the first in the state, so congratulations. I bow before you. Thank you for leading the state in that way. And so we're working on our second, and we have had so many different engagement sessions where we worked specifically, say, with the faith-based community, or with youth action groups, youth activists, or with those who are focused on business advocacy. So we wanted to reach out to all different groups. And part of that process, we realized, from talking to our allies at Chispa, that perhaps we shouldn't be the ones always hosting these climate action plan events. We maybe have our trusted allies or co-conspirators run the event, and we might get a different point of view than we would if we were hosting it, you know?
Interesting.
The city can feel to residents sometimes like the city is leading you a certain way, and we want not to feel led. And so we've really engaged a lot with CHISPA and a group called Unlimited Potential to try and really get at people's needs and interests. And we're focusing a lot, as I imagine you are, but maybe not much, on extreme heat and resilience, because heat is such a threat to our populations, especially our most vulnerable populations, those who are homeless and those who are low income. And we know that energy bills are pretty high, especially during COVID. People have seen even increased energy bills because they're home more, So we're focused a lot in our Climate Action Plan 2.0 on heat resilience.
That's great.
I mean, I could go on and on and on. And,
right. I'm going to try to do a quick screen share with everybody. I want to show you all what we are doing tomorrow at the City Council meeting.
Oh, nice.
I know, right? We are, this is our council agenda. And if you haven't seen one of these, you should get familiar with them because they're a great resource of information. But here are the different agenda items that we'll be discussing. First one being wildland fire preparedness and briefing, talking about the upcoming season. Second one, talking about biomass. Third one, talking about carbon dioxide removal information and discussion. Third one, talking about auxiliary dwelling units, making that part of our zoning code and easier to build. And then the last one, talking about our downtown library ADA entrance project. So as you can see, a few different topics directly focus on the topic of climate, or related to that focus area. And so locally, we are talking about it. We're addressing it in a number of different ways. We have a great team. We're definitely leveraging our community as best as we can. There's a lot of community groups that are working hard with us. We recently did that Solar United Neighbors. Are you familiar with that?
Say that again?
Solar United Neighbors, the SUN program. Right.
Is that with Brent Fanshawe?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Great guy.
We did that. It's basically a community cooperative buying opportunity to leverage cooperative large number buying power to get a good deal on solar for your home installation. And so I want to say we reached about 250 people signed up on that, which for us was a huge goal.
Yeah, because I remember hearing that the average amount of money that a solar installation company spends on just attracting that business is like $1,700. And so if you can bring together in a group buying situation, there can be a lot of savings for individual customers. And I would love to see that happen in Tempe. That you should spur me to do that. That'd be great. Or you're talking about this is spurring me to do that. Our goal isn't as ambitious as yours, sadly, but I think we're going to adapt our goal. We have climate neutrality, our carbon neutrality by 2050, and then we renewable energy goal 100% by 2035. But I believe we're going to adjust that to 2030 possibly. So we've had some challenges with our budget and actually financing our climate solutions. We had passed our first climate action plan in 2019, and it seems like we always want to have to show a return on investment for our investments in climate solutions. And sometimes those return on investments are very apparent, with LED lights perhaps, but other times it's a little more complicated because some of the investments lead to different impacts and societal impacts and livability impacts that you can't quite measure with a number, with a dollar sign. Right. So this year we carbon neutrality for the community and carbon neutrality for city operations ranked 4th and 5th in our list of 8 priorities that we wanted to accomplish in our budget. Yet somehow we were only financing 56% of what the staff had proposed to meet those goals that we have. Whereas other things that were 1 through 3 and then 6, 7, and 8 got like almost 100% funding. So continual challenge to actually fund what we say we're going to invest, and to actually invest dollars in some of our programs.
No, never. No, of course. it always comes down to the money, right? It always comes down to the money. And it's one thing to get a report done or analysis done and get, a plan in place and adopted, but then to actually see that plan through, like not even just the first chapter, but the entire plan or even half of that plan, takes so much political will and so much leadership by city staff, by council members, to be along with the public, that hold us accountable as a community to that plan, right? To that document. So I'm actually really happy. This year we're investing a significant amount into our plan, and it's going to be interesting. We'll be talking about it tomorrow night, but we're looking at different kinds of pilots in a whole range of topics, and then hopefully with the goal to then adopt them into longer term plans in the years to come.
Yeah, one innovation we took on was we developed this program called Equity in Action with Vitalist Foundation. So they invested half, and we jump-started it with our innovation fund. And we're paying individuals and social justice organizations to advise us on our planning processes, whether it's a climate action plan, urban forestry. Wow. And we're seeing people sort of rise up and just say, hey, I want a little bit more input into what's going on in the city, and I want to bring that back to the group I work with, Chispa, or Las Familias is a group also in Tempe that's focused on climate and other social justice goals. So I think that's a program we're really proud of, that has a lot of legs and will have a lot of impact. But it's all about building leadership in the community, because you and I both know that often people at the council meetings aren't the ones that will feel the direct impact, the decisions we make, because a lot of those people are very busy raising kids or working
2, 3 jobs. 100%. I always say that. Right. It's like, what voices are not being represented? What voices are never even heard? What voices never come to a council meeting or contact us or, email us? There's so many people that just don't engage with their elected officials or their local government that we represent too,
You think about, like, homelessness takes up a big chunk of our human services budget, and also our emails that we get from residents. But how often do we reach out to the homeless community and ask them about the services that we're offering or not offering and get their opinions? So there's been a few of us that have gone out to the parks and just sat down and just said, tell us, like, what's on your mind? What are your concerns? And that's really invaluable.
100%. And something I'm hoping to actually do quite a bit more of this upcoming year than my personal goals. But that's a great pivot point. Let's shift gears and talk about public safety.
Well, can I actually talk about one more thing? ADUs.
Yeah, of course, please.
I worked on ADUs a few years ago and asked staff to bring back what the results have been, and it hasn't. We wanted to encourage ADUs as well, especially in our historic neighborhoods where there already was a history of bungalow houses behind a bigger house. So we thought that was less impactful and less of a sharp shift if there were more ADUs built in a neighborhood that already had them. So we've made it easier. We reduced the amount of obligations and costs. We're not seeing the greatest uptick. I mean, there have been some, not a lot, but I'm interested in kind of mixing it up and making it even easier to accomplish in other zoned areas. But then I've heard pushback from people who say, but ADUs could end up just being used as Airbnbs and not necessarily be an affordable housing option, but just will bring more density into the city, which could be good where we want density, but it could end up hurting on the housing picture. So what do you hear about that in Flagstaff?
That's a great question, and let me just show you what we're doing, because I had that same concern. So this
is where you steal your ideas, Adam.
Exactly. Okay, so here on our agenda again for tomorrow, if you went to our ADU section, it talks about, and I'm not sure how quickly I can find it, but it basically says that what we're trying to do is make it that the person who is, all right, let me figure out how I'm going to best say this. Basically, to be allowed to create the ADU on your residence, that residence needs to be your primary address. That's one piece. So whether you live in the ADU or the other home on that property, one of those two locations needs to be your primary address. And then the second part of it is that you cannot rent that ADU out for anything less than 30 days.
Anything
So
less than what?
You can't rent it for less than 30 days.
Oh, I see. Right.
So it can't be a short-term rental.
Are you sure that won't come up against SB 1350 and the state preemption?
We've done it.
Nobody's listening from the legislature.
I know, and conversation's over. We'll see. But I think we'll be all right, but we'll see.
We changed our guest house regulations because before you had to have 15,000 square feet of land to have a guest house, and we changed that to 8,000 square feet. And we just stipulate that you can't rent it out. It can only be something for, you know, mother-in-law, father-in-law, or you can't rent it, and it has to be restricted deed. And that apparently is something you can do.
Huh. Have you tried the 30-day time period? We'll do that.
No, but
often developers come in, and we'll require that as one of the DA, components, the different pieces.
I definitely want to look into that, because it really could be, it's not the solution, but it's a solution, and it's in keeping with a lot of our historic neighborhoods. So it's not like a different kind of land use type or housing type. It's accepted and comfortable for people,
Totally. Okay. Do you want to say anything else about this before we shift gears?
Just that, we haven't passed a climate emergency resolution, but we've passed a climate action plan, and we're starting to really invest in that plan, and we're getting outside funding as well from Robert J. Wood Foundation for this Cool Kids program. So we're working with the Youth Advisory Commission to work in the neighborhoods to promote energy efficiency in some of our poor neighborhoods. So there's good things happening. I for one just believe in my heart and my intellect that we are in a climate emergency, and we really need to tune in and invest. And to me, the cascading impacts are as important as the financial savings that comes from adopting renewable energies. And just in a larger context, you're aware probably of the Arizona Corporation Commission and what happened last week.
What happened last week?
Oh, it was devastating. They failed
Really?
to pass a clean energy plan, which was 100% renewable by 2050. Sorry, 100% clean energy. So it was going to allow for nuclear to remain. But it was a bipartisan compromise worked out. And before the election in November, it had been voted on 4-1, but it failed last week. And it's just a devastating blow to a lot of us, because now, we don't have a renewable energy standard in the state of Arizona. And we know that the Arizona Corporation Commission is the fourth branch of government. It's responsible for utility rates and renewable energy standards, energy efficiency standards, and we got nothing now. 2 years of work down the drain. So
wow,
this is a race that people really must pay attention to in 2022, because we need to get people elected who are looking out for the ratepayers and wanting to protect those who are vulnerable to those rate changes, and also just embrace our renewable energy future.
Right. You also brought up cost a minute ago, and I just wanted to say that, often you think about the cost of doing these things and implementing climate action, but what is the cost of inaction? What is the cost of more forest fires and more extreme severe weather? It's like the flooding alone. We're still mitigating the issues with the museum fire from 2 years ago. And we're expecting a good amount of flooding this summer into those neighborhoods in our community. So the Real to Flag project, for those here in Flagstaff, that's huge. It's not if, it's a when. It's so much water that the flooding that would occur if we don't mitigate the Real to Flag is upwards of $1 billion. And the cost of the project is about $120 million. So, the trade-off is huge. And so we need to keep staying ahead of these things.
And I don't know about you, I assume it's even stronger in Flag than in Tempe, but there is a strong interest in climate change solutions and environmentalism writ large And there's the Center for the Future Arizona. They came out with that big poll about a month ago that showed such strong interest across the state for action. And our state is failing us. We need a sustainability commission for the state of Arizona. We need people who are business, people who are in business or in academia and residents to really inform the state about what actions we need to take, because we're really behind the times from the state policy perspective.
Yeah, I like to think people are waking up and getting more involved and more active in local government and local boards and local groups. And so hopefully we're on a good track, but we definitely need help.
You have a whole host of commissions, I assume, in Flagstaff. I know we're starting to hear from residents who are on those commissions that they're not content to just sit on a commission and show up every month and hear what the staff is proposing and kind of weigh in, inform. They want to have impact, and they're getting a little, little antsy. It's just like, we're serving in this commission, we're giving our time. We want to have more of an impact. And really, if you say we're supposed to advise the council, we want to advise the council, and we would like you to listen to our advice.
Yeah. Do you all, how many commissions do you all have? Do you know?
I want to say like 20 something.
Yeah, we have 26. And
Yeah,
we are
24.
like, council members are each liaisons to commissions. So we're like responsible to like communicate what the commissions are working on back to the council every week.
That's a great idea.
The commission, I know, right? It's a good amount of work, but it's very much worth it in terms of like empowering the commissions and really connecting the dots between the commissions to the council's decisions, right? Not every commission has a liaison, but a good amount of them do from council. And then obviously they have a staff liaison, but it's tough. But I think our system, at least in Flag, is working decently. Our commissions are great, and I'm grateful to everyone who served and is serving. But I think we could even do more. I do.
Well, we have a council member, Doreen Garland, who is new to the council from last July, and she's focusing. She got instructions from the mayor and council to really study the commissions and talk to the commission chairs and people on the commission, and what ways can we do? What ways can we make you feel better about serving, and can we listen to your advice? And I want to give that suggestion to her. That's awesome. We also noticed like there's a real lack of diversity on our commissions. They do not look like Tempe, and just 60% of our commission members are male, for example. That's certainly not reflected of the gender distribution in our city. So we're trying to really actively recruit people that look like our Tempe residents and not from one, group of people.
Right. Try that liaison thing, see if there's any interest to do that. And then the other thing we're doing too is we're doing a commission report, I think every 2 weeks in our agendas, in our city manager report. And so it'll give like an update on the different commission efforts and the things that they're doing. And it'll be, I'm really excited about it. I think it's great. 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, we do we see their minutes, but you're never sure if people are reading through the minutes. But I know like
it's like a summary, it's like a report.
We have a Family Justice Commission. We established that in 2015. It's the only Family Justice Commission in the country, and we focus on sex trafficking and sexual assault and domestic violence issues. And this year, finally, in our CIP, we're approving the formation and creation of a family advocacy center that would be a rape crisis center, that would be, a victims and survivors center. So they have to go to a police station, for example, to be, questioned about what happened. They could go to a comfortable setting where there's support structure built in. And that's something like from 2015, the commission said, we got to do this every year. We got to do this. And finally, it's taken hold because of COVID money, I think, because we're able to fund it.
Lauren, tell us more about public safety in Tempe and what you all are doing.
So we recently changed the way we do business as council members. We used to have these individual working groups on individual issues, and now we have 3 committees. And I'm on the Sustainable and Livable Communities Committee, and council members Garland and Navarro are on the Public Safety and Human Services Committee. So, but the mayor as soon as he got in office, practically appointed a Public Safety Advisory Task Force, and Mayor Keating and I are on that with the mayor. and about 25 other residents of the city. And we explicitly embraced activists. We wanted to bring in subject matter experts, people who had an understanding and lived experience with issues related to the police, and also that were connected to people who had been victims of police violence in some cases. So we wanted to, sit down and seriously look at some of these issues. So we went through this process for about, 4 or 5 months. We're now in the stages of like wrapping up all the recommendations. It's sort of overlapping with our budget. I'm a little concerned that we might not be able to get all the recommendations kind of to change our operations this year, but there's certainly been a number that have changed our operations and will change our budget. But it's going to be a little difficult to kind of explain all that to folks because, operations drive our budget. Our budget doesn't drive our operations.
Right.
And so it lopped 40% off public safety or police budget doesn't make sense. You have to change the operations, which will change the budget numbers that are needed, right?
Right.
But because of COVID funding, we froze so many positions, and now we're putting money back in to unfreeze some of those positions. Like we're spending another nearly $500,000 to have all of our rape kits go through the Mesa Crime Lab and not through the state lab, which takes so long. So that's an increase in the police budget of nearly $500,000. So you might see that and say, what? Why are you guys increasing your police budget? But I think no one would argue the fact that we need to clear the rape kits and go after those who are, have been, survivors of rape and sexual assault. So it's not the easiest issue to convey a message. And I've asked our staff, it's like, please, let's clearly define what we're doing and how we have changed our operations from this extensive public safety task force that the mayor started. And I'm hoping we'll have a lot of good results that we can show, including that to collect data on every traffic stop and every citation, and not just citations, but the actual stops that we make, right? We need to have a way to quantify that so we can identify if there are biases amongst an individual policeman or how we are as an entire city. So that's really important, I think. And that might be an increase in the police budget too, but the effect is to actually just to see reform and to see changes in the way we police,
Right. Yeah, it's complicated, right? I mean, the issues that we're trying to face are so much bigger than any of us alive today. They're so deep, and they're deeply rooted in our systems, and in our governments, and our operations. I said that at the dais in the past. There's racism at City Hall. There's racism in all of our structures. And like you said, why don't our commissions that fund or our employees or our elected officials reflective of the populations that we're serving? Why is that? And so locally, go ahead.
Well, in the past, it was hard to, I would kind of feel squeamish about who we're nominating, not because they aren't, for commissions, not because they aren't all wonderful residents, but just felt like they were coming more from a group who has the time and, retired or come from a certain part of town and just think, oh, we need to increase the diversity. But you don't want to be that person that says, no, I'm going to vote you down. Like, that's terrible. But we have a mayor who's very, interested in that and realizes you can't just look from the pool of people. You need to actually recruit, make people aware of the opportunities.
Yep.
And then so you recruit people. And you're right, it's like it's a hidden form of racism. And we have to ask those uncomfortable questions of ourselves as a council member. If I wasn't bringing that up, then I'm supporting that whole system,
Right.
And you don't want to be the person who asks that uncomfortable question in the room, but you really have to be the person of privilege. You have to be able to be uncomfortable and accept that you should be uncomfortable sometimes.
It's like if we don't work hard to counter the status quo, we're just continuing down the same path. And we need to actively and intentionally work to change the way we do things. Like you said, something I'm looking to do locally is raise our council salaries for the mayor and council. And that won't impact us who are elected today. It would be for the next generation of elected officials.
Yeah.
But I don't see why we're not paid, close to double what we're paid today, which is $24,500. And I think if council members were paid a living wage, to a wage that you can survive in Flagstaff on, at least to a small degree, we might see more different kinds of people running, not just folks who have money or are retired. That's got to change.
That's true, because there are some council members who are retired from their jobs, and they make the statement, and it's attractive as a resident. Like, I don't have another job. I'm going to work full time on this. I'm retired. I have the time to contribute. But you're right, that doesn't necessarily encourage diversity, and you won't necessarily see younger people who can't afford, to have a house or rent in Tempe on a salary. Well, in this case, it's like about $30,000 that Tempe has, with some additional sort of benefits to come into play. But you're right. And I just started to think, isn't it racist if we don't, in a way, it's racist if we don't allow, or if we don't have daycare or childcare for commission meetings? Because we're not necessarily racist, but we're not being accessible, right? Because people may be a commissioner, but they have to stay home and they have childcare. They don't want to pay, $30 to be able to be on a commission. So we have to think about how to make every step of our engagement with our residents accessible to everyone.
That's a good point. I'm going to go back to the public safety really quick and just give an update. Flagstaff is doing a lot, and I am so proud. I know that Tempe is a little bit ahead of us on some of these topics, but we, at our last budget hearing, did fund the upcoming 3 years of an alternate response. So we're doing a couple of things. We have an alternate response unit that's going to respond to what we call man down calls, and it's going to be a mental health specialist with a EMT, and so they're going to proactively go out and build relationships. Often they're going to have food with them and some water, and they're really going to have that. We're attempting to set this up so that the people involved really have the time and the patience and the individual's best interest in their minds as they're engaging with them and trying to support them. And so they're not only going to respond to calls, but they're proactively going to go out and try to build those relationships and proactively support those individuals that might need support or appreciate support. Then this is all being done through a Native perspective. We're hoping to really have a strong Native influence on all of these efforts. Obviously serving everybody. And then the other component is a detox day center facility. And so a detox day center facility. And so rather than taking folks to our jail or to our hospital, we'll be able to take them to this facility and also be able to provide wraparound services, different healing practices, and integration of approaches, specifically thinking about Native American approaches, and trying to change the way we do things. And then the third thing, if I'm talking about these topics in this population, you have to talk about housing. It all comes down to housing a lot of times. And so, and it's complicated because it's also other things too. But we are making a lot of moves on the topic of housing. And we're looking at a housing bond to put on the ballot in 2022. So stay posted, Flagstaff, but there's a lot of good things happening.
Yeah, we have this program that the mayor introduced called Hometown for All, and we're taking half of our permitting fees and putting that into it, and then we're asking for voluntary contributions from developers. So we've amassed $1.8 million, and that's helping us to acquire more land, which is always the best place to come from when we want to develop affordable housing. If we can donate the land, we're more likely to be able to, build some affordable housing. We know you and I are both frustrated by our state legislature because our state legislature makes it illegal for a city to require a certain percentage of affordable housing or a contribution to a housing trust fund. And that's a tool that a lot of cities across the US use effectively to build more affordable housing. So, I mean, we're doing a lot. We're doing something called Art Space. We're building affordable housing for artists in Tempe. And we're looking at very historic Denal Plaza, where we own over 50% of that land, and we want to build a community of affordable housing focused on artists as well. There's so much to be done, and I wish we had as much power as our residents think we do with our housing, though. But you and I know you can use the surgical tools of zoning law to really get more from developers, and I think we need to hold them to a high standard. If they want more density or height, then we should have to exact concessions and maybe a deeper contribution to our affordable housing trust funds.
100% agreed. Yeah, and we're working on that locally right now to our housing incentives, affordable housing incentives. because a lot of times, like you said, we don't have as much power as people think we do, or ability as local governments. We need to leverage our relationships and our partners that are working with the city. Councilmember Kuby, we're almost out of time. Do you want to shift to COVID, or did you want to say something else?
Sure. We do have a Hope outreach team, and we're with students at EPICS, Engineering Projects and Community Service. They're building out a trailer for us, and they're going to donate it back, and it's going to be a solar-powered trailer, and it will be a cooling station, a mobile cooling station called Jenny's Trailer. Jenny Norton, who's this amazing social justice advocate, is donating the trailer, and we're hoping to bring that from park to park, and it could be a food distribution center, place where people can cool off, get an ID card, get resources and all. So we're excited about that. And then we have this, we have Care 7, which is emergency response, and they go out with police sometimes or on their own to respond to people in distress. And we're going to expand that and dispatch all of that differently than we currently do, because we realize we don't want people to call 911 when they see somebody who's in a dire state. We want them to call Care 7 or a fire department.
What do you have any other details you can share about the dispatching? Does a team have an EMT for one?
I'm not exactly sure. I think they do. They have access to call out the EMTs immediately. They often work in conjunction with the fire department, in conjunction with the police. But they also go out, if they get called and there's someone in distress who's homeless that needs help, they'll go out immediately, and they'll call the Hope team, which will get people connected to resources and shelter. But the Hope team doesn't necessarily provide the emergency care, and Care 7 is more connected to that emergency care and connected with fire and medical rescue. My dog at the door. When we switch over, I'll let him out.
It sounds almost like Caros, a bit.
Or like Cahoots and Eugene as well.
Yeah, but Teros doesn't have an EMT, at least up here in Flagstaff, so it almost sounds similar. But we're working on an alternate dispatch program as well, but with Teros. But an idea that we haven't really pursued much yet is the co-dispatch of the police and Teros simultaneously. But I think we're looking at different ideas.
And we're looking at the crisis network, because there's calls that come in through the 211 system. We want to get connected to them. But when we reach out to somebody through Care 7, they become ours, and we want to help them not just that day, but in future times, and get them the resources they need, and not just have it be a one-off. So our Care 7 has done an amazing job, and we're expanding on Care 7 in this year's budget.
Nice. That's great. Good. Okay, let's shift to COVID really quickly, and then we'll jump on Instagram. So if we could cover this topic easily or quickly, we can try. But what is happening down in Tempe when it comes to COVID?
Well, I noticed that you guys, your vaccination rate is higher than ours. Boo! But we have 4% of our population, probably close to 41, has had first dose, and 30 are fully vaccinated. So you guys are higher than that, I think, right?
Yeah, we have 47% of eligible vaccination people fully vaccinated. So people who are of age, we have about 47%, I believe it is, that are fully vaccinated. So we're doing really well.
Well, I can't help but notice when I look at our zip codes, because we get that information by zip code, that our wealthiest zip code is 59.4% vaccinated, whereas the poorest zip code is like 28% vaccinated. So that's something we need to commit to as a city, in trying to really get the message and the word out to lower communities who are more vulnerable to all of this. Always more vulnerable, but during COVID, inequities are even more starkly we see them more clearly, right?
Right. Our county is being very flexible. They're having pop-up sites. You can just walk into an appointment. You need to set up an appointment ahead of time. If you got your first dose somewhere else, you can go to one of the county sites for your second dose. But yeah, I think we're at that stage too, where we're trying to really proactively engage and promote vaccination.
Do you have a program for homeless too, for vaccinations?
We've partnered with different agencies have partnered. The city doesn't have any part of this, by the way, just so everybody knows. The county oversees public health. I'm not sure what it is in Tempe, but is it the same?
It is, but we have partnerships like with Circle the City, so we help fund them, and Circle the City does vaccinations for our homeless populations and on Fridays and I think Mondays. So, we help to fund some of the nonprofits that come in, as we've been able to decentralize the model and not just have the pods, which of course is state and county run.
Gotcha.
We have, relationships with Mountain Park, a healthcare center, and we help them and to get the word out about how people can be vaccinated there in this very community-centered health practice.
And we do that too as a city. I'm going to show you all one more thing from Facebook. If I can do this. Boom. Okay, so this is from the county's Facebook page, Coconino County's Facebook page. They post one of these daily, I believe, except for on the weekends. And so you see our numbers here on this chart are going down, and it's so great. The dark green is 2021 cases. The blue is 2020. And so you see the green trend is kind of leveled out here after going up for a few weeks, and now is kind of trickling down. So this is a really good sign. We believe this bump is from the spring break period, and also the governor's release of the mask mandate. But it's good to see that the numbers didn't take off and are now actually trickling downward at a good rate. So very good news for Flagstaff and Coconino County. But
well, I want to thank you on Flagstaff for your leadership. Tempe followed suit, and we kept our mask mandate in place. Of course, there was a lot of public confusion because people thought the mask mandate was no longer. And the governor, even though he signed the bill that he says supersedes the city's authority, people have to be aware that the legislature is still in session, and it takes 90 days for a law to take effect. So in those 90 days from the time of the end of session, which isn't, it's mid-August is earliest that law will take effect, and maybe in 3 months we'll continue to save more lives because looking at the COVID numbers, and we're still not, we're not growing in our numbers of infection, but we had about 50 cases in the past couple of days, and if you said 50 cases last February, you'd be pretty alarmed. I mean, we know a lot of these. We know that the UK variant is now the dominant variant, I believe, in the state. And so all the variants are of real concern. And again, like the most vulnerable populations may not be getting the vaccine. So we have to really be on our guard.
Yep. The battle is definitely not over, and we definitely need to finish strong. But I do feel pretty confident, at least in northern Arizona at this point, given our numbers. Councilmember Kuby, we are out of time. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Lauren, closing comments. What would you like to say?
Well, I think we all do best when we share the best practices of our cities. And I know that Flagstaff and Tucson and Phoenix, there's a lot of amazing work being done. Just last month, Yasmin Ansari was elected in Phoenix to the city council. She's the youngest member of the council. She's been a long climate change activist and for the UN, and is so knowledgeable about climate solutions. So I feel like we're electing people that are focused on climate, focused on trying to get relief and aid to vulnerable populations. And so it is the greatest joy I have to work with residents, but also to work with council members like yourself and sharing those best practice ideas, because we need to lead. If the state isn't leading, then okay, just get out of the way and let the cities lead, because we're on the front line, and we have to answer to our residents when they see us at the Costco, when they see us in the grocery store, and we want to stand by our residents and say we are doing everything we can to protect the public health and protect community health.
Well said. Let's just leave it right there. That was perfect. Councilmember Kuby, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in for this and being a part of this. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day. We're going to take this conversation over to Instagram. Okay, see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Great.